we know that there are 5 books of Moses. Genesis, this is easy. Genesis, then you have Exodus, then you have Leviticus, then you have Numbers, and then you have Deuteronomy, which I can barely pronounce, whatever. So, why this Chumash, this section of the 5 books of Moses is called Numbers? Why is it called Numbers? Do any of you have an idea? Yes.
I'm going to throw a guess out there because they talk a lot about numbers and the number of Jews.
Okay. So the guess is not bad. In other words, in the book of Numbers, the Jewish people are counted a number of times. You have in the beginning of the book of Numbers a counting of all the Jewish people, a counting of the Levites, and then in this week's Parsha, the portion which we're going to read on Shabbat, or we've been reading it until now, there's another counting. So since we keep on counting and counting and counting, so the book is called the Book of Numbers, of counting. Now, what did you want to ask?
Torah restricts us to count the Jews.
Right.
How can the Torah counts?
Mm-hmm. What's your first name again?
Niso.
Nisa?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Nisa, which is interesting, which is
Nisim.
Nisim, okay. Nisa means to count also, by the way. So, you're not allowed to count the Jewish people. There's a whole problem over here that they have the census every few years in Israel. So the religious community has all kinds of difficulties being included in the census. And the really religious Jews, they don't allow themselves to be counted because you're not allowed to count the Jewish people. And over here, we're counting them and counting them and counting them. Very, very good question. We're going to attempt to answer the question, even though there are probably a number of answers to it. And I'm also going to want to hear from you what you have to say, because I'm not interested in saying a frontal shear. I can say all kinds of very nice things. What I want to do is to stimulate you to come to your own answers and to appreciate the material yourself. Go ahead.
Can I present a possible answer?
Absolutely.
So they collected a chetzi shekel and then they counted the shekalim, and then you're not counting the people.
Exactly. In other words, when they counted, they had a proxy counting. It wasn't a direct counting. Since it wasn't a direct counting, but they used to give whatever, a certain amount of money, and through the amount of money that they counted, that they used, therefore it wasn't a direct counting. But that creates a problem. What's wrong with counting? Is it the fact that you know the number, or is it the actual process of counting which is no good? And also, it doesn't say explicitly in the Torah, in these cases, that they used a proxy counting through the money, the half a shekel. It only says it explicitly in Exodus, whatever it's called over there, in Shmos. But over here, it doesn't say that. So since it doesn't say that, it could be that Nisa is correct, that over here, they didn't use that vehicle. And again, there becomes a problem of you're not allowed to count. Since you're not allowed to count, so therefore, how could they have made this counting? In order to deal with this problem, we have to understand what this counting is all about. And even more than that, why is this counting so central to this book of Moses? Obviously, the name that you give the book is very central for the whole book. So why over here is this so central? I mean, you have all kinds of things which go on over here. You have the blessings and the curses of Bilam. You have the Porah Duma. You have the Korach, and he's fighting around. You have the Meraglim. You have all kinds of things. Why is this counting so central to this book that the book is called on the name of counting? Now, I'm going to give you a hint, and from there, this is going to carry us into a very interesting discussion. In Hebrew, there are a number of ways of saying the verb of counting. Lispor, limnos. Over here, the Torah uses the lotion of lifkod. Let me see if I can bring you example over here. Over here, it doesn't use the word lifkod. It uses the word su'u. That's what I was saying before. Your name is what?
Nisa.
Nisa. So over here it says su'u es rosh kol adas b'nei Yisrael. So we have lifkod as a verb for counting, and we have su'u or loset, which is also a verb for counting. So what is the difference between the connotation of the word pakod and the connotation of the word nisa? So we'll start off from this point. Have you ever been into an office here in this country to get something done? And who are the people that are responsible for getting it done?
Israelis.
Right. And what do they call them?
פועלים.
In Hebrew, what?
פועלים.
No. איך קוראים מישהו שעובד במשרד?
פקיד.
Pakid. Right? Who said that? I did. Okay. That's fair. We need to say that.
What's it mean?
Pakid means a, how would you say pakid in English?
Clerk.
A clerk. That's a good word. Pakid is the word for a clerk. Pakid is somebody that decides whether you get money or you don't get money, whether you get a visa or you don't get a visa, right? It's this clerk in Israel. Life and death is in the hands of the pakid, of the clerk. So therefore, Israeli, I see, he appreciates that, right? So at any rate, so pakod means to count. Pakid means you have a certain job, a certain responsibility, right? Pakidei ha'otzar means the clerks that work for the treasury are called Pakidei ha'otzar. So they say Pakidei ha'otzar, the people that work for the treasury didn't allow you to do this, they didn't allow this money to go, right? You build a building, you're supposed to get your money from the government, and the government says, oh yeah, we owe you $1 million. Avol ha'pakid ba'otzar doesn't let you get the money because you didn't fill out the proper forms or something like that. So therefore, a pakid has a responsibility, a pakid has power, and lifkod means to count. Therefore, what we're going to explain now is that the Jewish people, every individual has his responsibility. Every individual has his place in the Jewish people. And therefore, when we count the Jewish people, we're not just counting numbers, which you're not allowed to do, but we're trying to count and give and identify the responsibility and the capabilities of each individual. In the Jewish people, every individual has special capabilities, and the capabilities of Ruvain are not like the capabilities of Shimon. The capabilities of Levi are not like the capabilities of Nisa. And when you count the Jewish people, and the purpose of the counting of the Jewish people in the book of Numbers is to identify the capabilities and the qualities of each individual and give him the opportunity to express his capabilities. That being said, we're going to be able to answer with the first question. What was the question we asked? Why is it so central to have a whole book called Numbers? Right? What kind of business? Numbers, right? If you're a mathematician, okay. But why is it so important, the concept of numbers? According to what we're saying now, it's not the number that counts. It's the responsibility, the capabilities, and the effect that each individual of the Jewish people can do and can give and can contribute to the Jewish people. And over here, we're going to see something very interesting. There are two countings. There's a counting in the very beginning of the book of Numbers, and there's going to be a counting in this week's portion. Now, and this also relates to this question that you asked about if you can count, you're not allowed to count the Jewish people. So it says in the first counting, an interesting expression. Over here it says, Su. Over there in the beginning it says, Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe b'midbar Sinai lemor, Pikod, right, as Bnei Yisrael. You should count them And we're saying counting means give them an understanding of what their responsibility is. So it says like this. You count them, lemishbachosam, for their families, lebeis avosam, for their father's house, the mispar shemos. You didn't count the people, but you counted their names. In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu found out, let's say, in the Buzaglo house. You know, over here, Buzaglo is like a name for common Jew, like you have Smiths, you have Buzaglo in Israel. So in the Buzaglo house, you have Shimon Buzaglo, Ruvain Buzaglo, Yechezkel Buzaglo, Sarah Buzaglo, Rivka Buzaglo. They mentioned all the names, the family name, who the father's name was, which part of the community they belonged to, and Moshe Rabbeinu did not count the people, which you're not allowed to count, but he counted their names. And the names are very specific. Each individual's name, the name of his father, the name of the family. Over here, in this counting, it just says a mishpachosam. It doesn't say b'mispar shemos. It doesn't say lebeis avosam. It just says generally. So the Meforshim explain an interesting thing. Every individual in the Jewish people has a responsibility. And every individual, his responsibility, if it's missing, the Jewish people are missing capabilities that they're supposed to get. But there are some people that are generally capable. Let's say some people can, I'll give you an example. They're very good accountants, okay? Very good accountants. Now you have a number of accountants, but each individual accountant isn't that special because you can have 20 accountants. But you have somebody who's the head of the firm, and he's the one that decides, makes all the decisions as to what accounts you get to get people to make the accounts. Or he's not an accountant anymore. He's the head of the treasury, right? So an individual accountant has certain responsibilities, and the head of the treasury has other responsibilities. So the first time that the Jewish people were counted, each person was so important that he as an individual made a difference. He didn't make a difference because of the people that he had or the family that he had, but he as an individual made a difference. Later, as the new generation came out, the capabilities of each individual were not as acute, and therefore the family was important. But an individual, he didn't make that much of a difference. Now, let me ask you, today, every individual Jew makes a difference or not?
Of course.
Why?
What's the difference between now and then?
What? What's the difference between now and then? What would you say? Is there a difference? Nothing. So an individual doesn't make a difference.
No, we're just as important now as we were then.
Okay, but there's levels of responsibility. There's each individual or the general family. The beginning when they counted, it was each individual that was important. Now it's the general family, or the second time that they counted was the general family. Today, is each individual important or the general family important?
Each individual.
All right. You're not exactly understanding what the difference is. You're not following what the difference is. Some people can change the course of history. Other people can't change the course of history, but they can contribute to a project. They can contribute to a certain effort. Right? For instance, in an army. In an army, you have the foot soldiers. Then you have the sergeants. Then you have the lieutenants. Then you have the generals. So the difference between the capability of a general and the capability and the need of a foot soldier is different. So are we foot soldiers or are we generals? What?
We don't know.
Yeah, what do you want to say?
So based on what I think, I'd say, and I guess my questions to already answered your most recent question would be generals, because since we're in a period of exodus and the people are spread out, while the family is an important situation, it's not necessarily that each family will play the role that it once would have, whereas each individual themselves may go about and create a new family or come out and each individual will play an important role themselves. So kind of like when you ask, I mean, the example is given here, the fact that everyone here is in the yeshiva. Everyone has a very different background. So while the family is important, no doubt, it's also the individual that made the decision himself to take something upon themselves. So therefore, in this situation, the individual is more important in the family.
Very nice. In Or Sameach, we feel that every one of you are generals.
Everyone is general?
Everyone is a general. Why is that?
To represent the Jewish people.
Today, the Jewish people, how many million Jews do you have nowadays? No, generally. Generally.
13 or 14 million.
13 or 14 million. How many of them are really aware of their heritage?
None. Few. Millions.
What?
3-4 million?
3-4 million. Maybe. Maybe. Right? I don't know if they're
Must be more than
about 2%, 3%. Right? Therefore, what's happening to the other, let's say, 95%?
they assimilated.
They assimilated. Right? I just saw there was somebody supposed to be speaking in Toronto. So his family name is a very Jewish name. So I Googled him to find out who he is. So I found out his mother is a Catholic. Right? So we're losing the Jewish people at a tremendously large rate. Therefore, where in certain periods of time, we would have a situation where you're one of a crowd. Today, those that have the opportunity to understand what their responsibility is, understand what the Jewish heritage is, understand what the purpose of the Jewish people, they can influence many, many, many more people. For instance, he comes from Turkey. How many families in Turkey are there nowadays?
We know the number.
Yeah, how many?
13,000.
13,000. How many of them are religious?
Less than 1,000.
Less than 1,000. Where are you from?
Oregon.
Oregon. How many Jews are there in Oregon? Not too many, right? Right? But those that are there, you represent Judaism in Oregon. Which city, by the way?
Portland.
Portland. Oh, it's not so bad. Portland is it's already an Ibe Israel, right?
6,000.
What?
6,000 religious Jews, maybe?
In Portland. Right. And how many Jews are there altogether? How many Jews are there altogether?
A large number.
I'm from Detroit. When I was brought up in Detroit, there were 100,000 Jews. And how many were religious?
95.
What?
95.
95 Jews.
95,000.
No. Maybe 300 Jews. Out of 100,000 Jews, maybe 300 were religious.
That's your accountant, Aaron.
What? How many are there today in Detroit? How many Jews are there in Detroit today? No, there are about 40,000. 60,000 disappeared. A lot of them left because Detroit is Detroit. But let's say a lot of them just were lost to the Jewish people. How many religious Jews are there in Detroit today?
100?
What?
50.
No, there are about 10,000. So what? Religious Jews, more probably. But let's say, it depends on how religious we call religious. But okay. So what happened to the demographic? The percentage what? Why did that happen? Because there were a few individual Jews that they were the generals. They brought the message of what the Jewish people are all about. And the ones that had that message identified with Judaism. And also the ones that had that message had about 10 kids, each one of them. Right? So you have, right? So therefore, the religious community grew. Now, each one of you, from whatever background that you come from, you are carrying on your shoulders, if you want to, you can always run out of the Jewish people, where nobody can keep you. But you have on your shoulders the responsibility of hundreds, if not thousands of Jews. Because you're being a Jew that knows what his commitment is, that knows what his Jewish heritage is all about, it can have a tremendous influence on other people. How do you do that? You're going to say, who am I? I barely know something about Judaism. How can I be a general? How can I influence Jewish people? What would you say?
By living a Torah lifestyle?
That is correct. What?
Go into Kira, become a rabbi.
Okay, but even if you don't, what's your name again?
Aaron.
Aaron. What Aaron is saying is correct. Be an example of what a religious Jew is all about. I had a friend of mine who was brought up religious. He went to yeshiva together with me. And then I was going to yeshiva. I was in Detroit, and we were studying in Baltimore, and it was the beginning of the school year. I called him up, say Ploni, right? Let's go together back to yeshiva. So he tells me, listen, Avraham, I've had enough of yeshiva. I'm finished with yeshiva. Bye. And that was it. So the next 20 years, he was the most anti-religious, what do you say anti-religious? The most hedonist individual in the world. Whatever was possible to indulge in, he indulged. Which we won't go into. You can probably figure it out yourself. And he said he liked non-Jewish girls the most. Right? Unfortunately for him,
Why?
I don't know, I have to ask him. All right? And unfortunately for him, he met a girl, he thought she wasn't Jewish. And he fell in love with her, and it turned out she was Jewish. What can you do? Arangefallen, as we say. Anyway, he married her. He had his first kid, and then he said to himself, what kind of heritage am I going to give my kid? Hedonism, right? Non-identification. Then he looked around and see who are the happiest people in the community. And without going into individuals, he saw those that were living the religious life, they were the happiest. And he told me once upon a time, any religious Jew that goes around with a sour look on his face, he's a walking Chilul Hashem. He's a person that's desecrating the name of God. Because if you're Jewish and you're religious and you're not happy, something's wrong. Because the purpose of the Torah is to get the person to fulfill his capabilities, to get the person to appreciate how to live life properly with the proper balance, and he should be ecstatic every second of the day. And if you live like that, and if you feel like that, so then you are a general. Why are you a general? Because hundreds of people will say, listen, my lifestyle is bankrupt, and I would like to pursue a lifestyle which I see is successful. So therefore, when we're learning the Chumash, when we're learning the Torah, we have to be able to identify the capabilities which we have. And those capabilities, there are some people that should go into chinuch. Some people that are, they have an affinity for being able to explain things to people in order for them to bring out their understanding. They can present things in proper fashion. People that have that capabilities, they should go into chinuch. People that are very good in finance, they should make a lot of money. Because when they see a religious Jew with a lot of money, so they say, you know, it's good to be religious. Right? One of the things that Or Sameach does, they take them to all these religious communities in Flatbush, or in Toronto, or in Los Angeles, and they say, you know, living in a $10 million fat mansion is not so bad. Just because you have to go to morning, go to daven in the morning, and you have to, go to yeshiva, go to Beis Medrash for a couple hours at night. If I make $10 million, right, I don't mind. So you have to be able to appreciate what your capabilities. This is the tafkid. This is the responsibility of the Jewish people. Since it's the responsibility of the Jewish people, therefore each person has to find out what is his capabilities. And when he knows what his capabilities are, to use them within the framework of the Jewish heritage, tradition. I don't want to say the Jewish religion because it's not a religion, it's a heritage. And in using it within that framework of the heritage, he can be a general, he can influence thousands of people. And the Jewish people can survive. Because without that, the Jewish people are disappearing. In America, literally disappearing. The 100,000 become 40,000, the 40,000 become 20,000, and we lose them all. But there's another point which I want to make here. We said one of the ways of explaining the word counting, or saying it in Hebrew, is pakod. So he said pakod means each person has a tafkid, he has a job, and he has a responsibility, and he has special capabilities, and since he has these special capabilities, he has to be able to use them in the proper fashion. So the job is to find out, mishpachosam, lebeisavosam, who are you, what can you do, how can you contribute? But there's another thing also. There is a loshon of su'u. What does su'u mean? Su'u literally means, we have a translation for this? Yeah. Nah, this is not good. You see, this is what happens, you know what they say, lost in translation. So it says, su'u, take a census, count. But su'u really means to lift up, to lift something up. Su'u, to carry something, is called a masa, something that you carry. Su'u means to lift something up. So there's a story in the first book of Moses about Joseph. Joseph was sold to Egypt. He was put in jail, and he was trying to get out of jail. So there were two fellows in jail that were working for the king. One was the baker, and the other one took care of the wine cellar. They were both in jail, and they had dreams. After they had the dream, they were very upset, and they didn't know what the dream meant. So Joseph said, okay, let me hear what the dreams are. So he told one guy that you're going to be reinstated, and the other guy says you're going to be hung. So the way that in the Hebrew it's put over there is that he told the guy that's going to be reinstated that the king is going to be su'u es roshcha. He's going to lift you up and put you back into your old position. The other guy, the baker, who at the end was killed, he says, the king is going to su'u, he's going to lift off your head from your body. In other words, he's going to kill you. Right? So he uses the same lashon. Su'u, to reinstate him, and su'u, to take your head off. Nowadays by Badaish, you know what it means to cut off the head. Right? So, but why did he do that? Why did he use the same expression, one to be an expression of elevating, and one being used as an expression of being killed? So the Targum over there's a Aramaic translation. So he said the one that he reinstated was a non-Jew that loved Jews, and he dreamt good things about Jews. So since he was a person that loved Jews, so therefore Yosef explained the dream in a manner that would be positive for him. The other guy was a Jew hater. He knew that he hated Jews. I don't know how many Jews were, whatever, in principle. And therefore, he told him, he gave him a feeling that it's going to be okay. And then in the end, he told him, you're going to get killed. Whatever. But that's not the point here. The point over here is, su'u you can be lifted up positively, or you can be lifted up negatively. So the Meforshim say like this: the fact that you have capabilities, the fact that you have certain gifts is a responsibility. So if you use it, you're going to be uplifted. And if you're not going to use it, those capabilities you'll be judged and you will be punished because of the fact that you didn't use your capabilities properly. So what do we learn from this Parsha? We learn out from this Parsha that it's not just necessary to appreciate and understand that each one has capabilities. But you have to understand the fact that you have capabilities gives you also responsibility. So therefore you're lifted up with your capabilities, but you're also responsible. So if a person can accomplish something, if a person can gain great insights, if a person can become great and he doesn't use his greatness, he's going to be responsible for the fact that he did not utilize the greatness that he has. So these are the two things which is the central focal point of all of this Chumash. The Chumash, this book of Moses, which is called Numbers, is to emphasize, and all the stories and all the different things which happen here are to emphasize the fact that if a person has great capabilities, he has great responsibilities. And if he uses the capabilities properly, he can reach the sky. And if he doesn't use it properly, what happened to Korach and his friends? Swallowed up. So you can either reach the sky or else you can be swallowed up, chas v'sholom, alive. That being said, how do we find what our capabilities are? How do we discover what our capabilities are? What would you say? Yes?
Dr. Rabbi.
Okay. That's very self-serving, right?
Knows you very well.
That is true to a certain extent. That is true to a certain extent. In other words, the staff here is trained to be able to identify qualities and be able to try to bring out the qualities that they have. You know what? Because you mentioned this, it says over here, one more thing in this week's Parsha. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu was told he's going to die. So Moses said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if I'm going to die, you have to choose a leader in my place. I don't want the Jewish people to be without a leader. So Moshe Rabbeinu says to him, Elokei Ruchot, the God of all the winds, you should choose a person, Asher Ruach Bo, where he has a wind. What does this wind mean? So before Hashem explained, we want a leader that can deal with each individual. There are some leaders, they are dictators. Everybody has to do the same thing. And if you don't do the same thing, we take off your head, we make everybody the same size. Those are the leaders. So what did Moshe Rabbeinu ask? What type of leader do we have to have? A leader that can understand and appreciate the needs of each individual. That type of leader can lead the Jewish people. But if he tries to just set the same standards for everybody, that's not a real leader. And over here, we try to have the leaders which are Ruach Elokim, that he understands each individual. But one more thing. What else do you have to do? What?
Study Torah?
Okay, you're right. You know why you're right? Because the way you study Torah and the way you learn Torah emphasizes the capabilities of each individual. How intelligent you are, how systematic you are, how sensitive you are. And studying Torah really gives you an appreciation of your capabilities. That's a very good point. I didn't think of that. Yeah, what do you want to say?
Challenge yourself.
That is what I was looking for. In order to be able to be successful and understand who you are and what you can do, you have to challenge yourself. You have to look for different things which are not that easy, but you feel that through accomplishing this, you are using special capabilities that you have. And if you challenge yourself and you use these capabilities, then you become aware of what your capabilities are. And being aware of those capabilities, you can start using them in many, many different directions. Now, I'm just going to end with one last thing. Every Shabbat, we read a different section of the Torah. Why is that?
So that everyone can find something from Torah.
Okay, you're great. Shabbos is a day of meditation. That's the day where you stop doing everything else. You're not distracted. It's a day that you're supposed to have introspection. Who am I? How do I function? So each portion gives you food for thought in order for you to be able to examine your spiritual and even your physical capabilities, in order for you to be able to utilize them the 6 days of the week. So when we come towards Shabbat, and when we have a Shabbat, every Shabbat you should take out a few minutes to think, what have I accomplished during the week? What am I capable of accomplishing during the week, which is coming? And if I do that, if we all do that, then we are assured constantly the growth which is necessary to go from step to step, to be able to know what our responsibilities are, what our capabilities are, in order for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to lift us up and not chas v'sholom lose out and not take the responsibility which we can do. Have a good Shabbos.